Hi, virtual students. We're here with Unit 1, Part 4 today. You're on your own with your notes because we're going to be drawing some graphs and things like that. So make sure that you have something to write on. Starting out with a daily blog here. We're going to show you a concept that allows us to show on a graph all of our possible options. And anyway, we're starting out with, in this case, 5 hours of leisure time. But you've got to pick between two activities. You can't do more than two, which makes our life a little bit more difficult, but makes our graph a whole lot more simple. So go ahead, take a shot. See if you can put this on a graph, and we'll go from there. All right. So hopefully you had a chance to get an answer there. And if your answer looks anything like answers that I've seen in the past, you probably started out by drawing a graph, maybe like this, where you have a 3 hours, 2 hours. Maybe you did a pie chart and you did, 3 hours and 2 hours, whatever the case might be. Maybe you tried some line graph, which these are great. These are great guesses, except for the fact that they only show us one option. So we want a graph that's going to show us every single option. Now, I'll show you how we can do this. So, like we said, we first of all have to narrow it down to we only can do two things. And so, which I know is harder than to do than what we might want it to be. But either way, we can only narrow it down to two things. And so I'm going to say I can do two things at home. I'm going to either watch Netflix, okay, or hang out with my kids. Now, you might be like, well, you could do both at the same time. Well, I don't want to watch what the kids watch, and the kids don't want to watch what I watch. So kind of keep in mind to keep our lives simpler that we can only do one thing at a time. Okay. Now, if I were to spend my entire evening watching Netflix, that would mean that I would spend 5 hours doing it. I could put that spot on a graph. Now, if I do that for 5 hours, that means zero time with my kids. And I can flip it over too. I can say, well, I can spend all my time with my kids if I want also, right? That's 5 hours with my kids, no time with Netflix. I can also say, okay, 4 hours Netflix means 1 hour with my kids, 3 and 2, 2 and 3, 1 and 4, and we can connect those dots. All right, and there's my graph right there. Keep in mind what this is showing us, okay, is it's showing us all the possibilities of production, quote unquote production in this case, with my time. When time is our only resource, it's super easy to measure, right? If I want to watch one more hour of Netflix, right? If I was right here and I want to watch one more hour of Netflix, well, I got to give up 1 hour with my kids, right? So it's easy, super easy to measure. Things can be a little bit more difficult if we talk about producing things with different resources, which is what we're going to do next. Okay. So we have kind of changed the resource here. In this particular case, we're going to use land as the resource. Okay, so this farmer can use all of his land and he can grow 10 bushels of soybeans or 20 bushels of corn. Go ahead and see if you can draw that on a graph. Okay, we're going to get started here. We're just going to kind of describe what's going on. All right, as we go. Sorry, I had that up there already. So if we're trying to say this, let's just say that a farmer uses his entire field, okay, to grow soybeans. He uses that entire field to grow soybeans. We'll put them up here. He can produce 10 bushels. All right, so I'm just going to put a point for number 10 right there. All right. Well, you can also grow corn. All right. And I believe the maximum was 20 bushels of corn. So to take my numbers right, I'm going to label these 20, 10, 5, just for the sake of it. All right. Now, let's just say he had his field here and he cut it in half. And he put soybeans here and he put corn here. Well, how much soybeans could he produce? Well, 5. And for corn, he could produce 10. And so we can see that spot on the graph as well. And we could do a whole bunch of different things and divide by different amounts. We're just going to take our best shot at drawing a straight line, though, okay, and connect those dots. All right, and that's our production possibilities there of soybeans versus corn for this one farmer. Now, the next question is, what is the opportunity cost? How much does it cost me if I want to give up making soybeans to produce 1 unit of corn? Well, we could draw a perfect graph and we could say, all right, well, I need 1 unit of corn. So that's right there. How much soybeans do I give up? Well, that's like a half a unit of soybeans. We could try to make sure our graph is perfect. We don't need to do that though. Okay. So the way that we do this is we take a really simple equation. So we've got 20 units of corn is equal to 10 units of soybeans. All right. And we're going to solve for each variable here. Let's solve for soybeans first. 10 divided by 10. So we've got one soybean equals 2 units of corn. I'm going to put a box around it so I know that that's my answer. Okay. And then I know that that's what you're trying to show me. Now, for the other side, we'll just start from the beginning. I'll show you the shortcut on the next one. But 10 units of corn equals 10 soybeans. Now let's solve for corn. 20 divided by 20. All right. We've got 1 unit of corn equals a half a unit of soybeans. I'm going to put a box around it so I know. Okay, let's practice another one of these here real quick. Okay, so we've got a same concept. We've got a farmer, and in this particular case, he is able to grow potatoes or turnips. Okay, so sometimes it kind of helps to draw that out and identify what you're trying to do as you're going. Okay, take a shot here real quick, solve for each variable, and we'll keep moving forward. All right, so I've got to erase my little spot right here again. Sorry about that. So anyway, here's what we've got. And I'm going to double check my stuff here. So 12 turnips, 4 potatoes. So I've got 12 T. I'm just going to set up the math first. Equals 4 potatoes. So I'm going to write that out. Now, I also have you draw out the graph. Now, I don't have graph paper on this one. I'm just going to draw the graph just like I would require you to draw it. I'm going to do the best that I can, right? I'm going to label one axis, and this is the most important part, is labeling an axis, right? I'm going to label one axis turnips. I'm going to label the other potatoes. Turnips, maximum is 12. Potatoes, maximum is 4. And I'm going to connect those dots. Okay, so that's what I've got. I've got my graph all set. Now I've got to solve for each variable here. So I'm going to divide by 4, divide by 4. Okay, so 1 potato equals 3 turnips. I'm going to box it. Okay, and here's my shortcut. I don't have to go back to the beginning. All right, I'm just going to use this right here. I'm going to divide by 3, right? And divide by 3. And now I've got 1 turnip equals a third of a potato. Okay, so that's my little shortcut there. I put a box around it, and now I know that that's what I'm trying to. Now I know that that's what you're trying to show me. Okay, moving forward here. So here's when things get a little bit trickier. Okay, in some cases, right, different resources are used for different reasons, and some are better than other things. And so, for example, if we were in Indiana, right? Let's just say the economy was controlled by Indiana and Hawaii, okay? And we were able to produce both pineapples and corn. Well, Indiana is really good at producing corn. They're not so good at producing pineapples, right? And so what we start seeing is if Indiana were to specialize in corn, just like Hawaii is not as good at growing corn, they're better at growing pineapples, we start seeing this bow to the curve, right? We can work really hard to produce stuff if we wanted to, but if Indiana was working really hard to produce pineapples, they wouldn't produce nearly as much. So Indiana should focus on corn. Hawaii should focus on pineapples, and it's going to make our entire situation better off because we're going to be able to do what we call specializing. Okay, and we can specialize for more reasons than just what our climate is good at. We can specialize for labor reasons, right? Whatever job you're choosing to do, you're choosing to do something that you're hopefully good at, so you can do it as fast as possible, so you can make as efficient as money as possible. So again, we also have some, technology, some tools that make things better as well. Okay. Here's another practice problem for you. Go ahead and pause it real quick. See if you can come up with the answer. Do it quick because I have it written down for you already. So when I change the screen, it'll be up there. Okay, so I just made up here pens versus markers. Okay, and here's our situation. I've got in green here, I've got pens, I've got markers, I've labeled my axes, I've got the math figured out over here. I didn't put a box around it. I want to make sure I do that because then I know what you're trying to get me to look at. And we have this blue part added. We said assume the economy found a more efficient ink for pens that allowed them to make them faster. What does that mean? Well, that means our resources have changed. And our available resources now are obviously um, more efficient. And so our prediction is going to be that we're going to be able to make pens faster. So our new line would look something like this, shifted outwards to the right as we predict what would happen in our economy. Notice nothing was said about the markers. So we don't know if we can make markers faster, but we can shift our line out if we need to. And a few different things are going to cause that. Those things, all right, are going to be technology, population, and any other available resources. And so, again, the questions that we're going to focus around for what you're going to need to remember are going to be basically a change in population, a change in available resources. That could mean land. That could mean technology to dig deeper in the ground for oil, so to speak. But it causes our curve to shift in those situations. And we'll go over some of those here in a second. Remember, the bow is represented by specialization. Okay, so people get good at specializing. They're able to do more stuff faster if they do what they're good at. Okay, and that can mean for an entire economy, that can mean for an individual, that can mean for a specific business, whatever the case might be. Okay, so let's first of all increase our technology, let's say, for corn. Okay, so we got like new fertilizer. Well, fertilizer is not going to affect RVs, right? So fertilizer is only going to affect corn. We're going to say that that's going to make our curve go out that way. Okay. Now we could also say we have robots that build RVs faster. Okay. So just kind of like right here, we'll say robots that build RVs faster. Well, we could do the opposite. We could draw it like this. Okay. So those are two examples of only one side of the line shifting. We can also say, all right, that we have a change in population. So if we have a baby boom, well, what's that going to do? Well, babies, future workers, right? They're going to do both. They're going to make RVs and become farmers. And so we would say, listen, in this particular case, we can produce more. So that's our baby boom. Both sides would benefit from it. Well, we can also say like, well, as bad as it sounds, COVID has caused more people to die than on average, right? Than in an average year. And so we see that we could say, hey, our production is actually going to decrease, right? If we have, something that causes a high level of fatalities. Think about like in a war. So World War II, the population of the world was obviously greatly affected in terms of how much we were able to produce. All right. So those are the two things that can make it so um, we produce more or less stuff. All right, that's what I've got for you today. Make sure you do the practice problems. Email with questions. I know some of this stuff is a little bit different to learn on the virtual world, so don't be afraid to email me with questions, and we will get you sorted out.